So this case is very important. It's the case of a serial killer known as Khalil Wheeler. And this takes place in New Jersey. So this is a recent 2016 and 2018 serial murder case. A very serious one. One of the most serious serial killers that's ever been in New Jersey history. So look forward to this. And there's more that's going on. And the Pine Barrens, of course, I'm going to be covering. Thank you again. Spread the word. The most notorious serial killer. This is very important to do for some reason. The New Jersey serial killer who murdered dozens of victims. Khalil Wheeler Weaver told the court he was framed for the murders of 3 of the victims, but sat still as his sentence was handed in Newark, New Jersey. Family members of victims Robin West and Sarah Butler read the statements. When he learned his fate for the 3 killings and the attempted murder and counts of kidnapping, aggravated arson, and desecration of human bodies, he sat very solemnly. Tiffany Taylor, who survived an attack by this serial killer, shared her trauma from that night of the events. My whole life is different now. I do not wear any makeup. I do not have friends. I am paranoid because of this incident. Wheeler Weaver strangled 3 victims after meeting them online using dating apps and dumped their bodies in basically northern New Jersey near the Pine Barrens. So these cases are going to be run kind of concurrently. I'm going to be showcasing both of these. Wheeler was one of New Jersey's worst serial killers in basically more than 20-something years. There's never been anyone like this. There they are when they go to the official function and the funeral as well. Sarah Butler's picture as she gives a victim impact statement, etc. You could tell that this is as serious as it ever gets. Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Butler, one of the victims, had disappeared around Thanksgiving 2016 and their body was found in the woods. So I'm going to cover this for a bit. This is a very important case. And then what will also be covered is the missing persons who have gone missing for a long time in what's known as the Pine Barrens. The Pine Barrens area of New Jersey is very, very notorious for these missing person cases that have been going on all the way along. And like I said, there's more that's going to be covered on this for sure when it comes to the Pine Barrens and what that means for society overall. Because there's more than 10 or so different missing people who went missing in the area basically of the Pine Barrens. It's a very interesting true story. And They're still finding victims in the Pine Barrens woods, the woodland areas, to this date. So it's very important to cover this. And so Khalil Wheeler Weaver had a frenzied crime spree that left more than 3 victims dead and is going to be spending the rest of their lives behind bars. Wheeler Weaver has remained jailed in Essex County since December 2016, and the ruling officially came in for final sentencing in November of 2021. He mostly targeted the young and vulnerable, with few contacts who might report them missing or care about them because they were, of course, part of the nightlife. The deadly escapade only stopped after friends and family of one victim received a fake set of dating profiles. So people are not aware. These dating profiles, this online dating and things like that, is absolutely the last thing you want to do. They have reported more problems with dating profiles and anything to do with any of those dating sites and things like that than almost anything out there on the internet. It's the last thing you want to at all come anywhere near. Just gonna, I'm gonna forewarn people. This is what's been going on for a long time with these people like Khalil Wheeler Weaver and Amber Rhodes. Adam Wells, the assistant prosecutor, said after the sentencing that felt relieved. The only DNA matching Wheeler Weaver was found beneath the fingernails of 2 of the victims. Taylor gave the story to the police, but they declined any kind of follow-up. So they didn't care enough to have any kind of follow-up until now they found out all of these people had been murdered, of course. And it's an ironic story, because this is another case of at least 3 different serial killers. There was Wheeler Weaver, but then there was 2 people who worked with them, worked with Weaver in specific, who have murdered numerous victims over this time period. So these dating apps, and these online apps and things like that are really the worst thing that is out there right now. People need to be made aware of that fact, that they're the worst thing you can possibly come up into. These things that are like online sites and online websites, online dating, etc., they got the worst types of people who are showing up there. So you can be forewarned, because to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Be honest about it. That these things are the exact opposite of what they have said they are. And that most of these companies are truly bottom of the barrel nonsense. Nobody has any business getting involved with these online companies, online dating sites and things like that. They are filled with just the lowest kind of worst scum, if that's what you want to call it, that can be even imagined. And people have for decades said these companies were good, and all these things. They're worse. They're worse than anything in someone's imagination. And that's why pretty much all of them are being nationalized, folks. You need to recognize this has been the fact that's been going on with online dating and similar things, online e-commerce and so on, for decades. We're talking over 50 years of this. And you be wise to finally catch a clue and stay away from these companies. I would trust nothing that comes out of any of these companies, like a lot of people I've talked to agree and concur. Just trust nothing that comes out of any of these companies. If anything real is going to come out of companies, it'll be startup companies that are barely just getting begun all over again. It will not be any of these companies. And it won't be IBM, folks. So start taking it to heart that this is a real thing. And stay away from any of these types of companies. Any of these large companies in specific. Just stay away from them. And do yourself a favor, is what I will say. Thank you again. And if you enjoy true crime related content, true crime videos, we always try to get out 2 to 3 of these a week and so on. And if you want to see more, I won't say that we're on a shoestring budget or anything. I'm not going to comment on anything in any kind of way. That may or may not be the case. Can never comment on anything. But if you like these cases and you like to find out about what the truth is and what's truly going on, make sure to chip in, another $1 and assist us and support Patreon as well, so we can get more of these cases out here. Because this is indeed the truth. What we have here is we're seeing the true colors of all these companies. With the strike of the gavel, they handed down the 25-year Wheeler a life sentence of 140 years. I hope you can find it in your heart to give the longest maximum sentence. They killed over 4 victims, and then later they found another 3 who were deceased because of this New Jersey serial killer. And so, and the biggest thing that I can say about that, folks, is you need to be forewarned. Recognize these companies are not any good. And if you can really understand what's happening, stay away from anything to do with online profile companies. That could be like online dating, online social sites, all these things. Stay away from them entirely. This is what's been going on throughout their history. You're seeing 2 of these people actually, in New Jersey and similar, who recently were sentenced for 140 years. That's what they've been doing throughout their history. Stay away from this stuff altogether, if you can help it. And avoid large companies like the plague. Most of them, folks, nearly all of them in some cases, are no good. Avoid large companies like the plague. Thank you again. More true crime is, of course, on the way. So like it's been spoken all the way along here, this is a very interesting and serious case. And then it also led to what goes on in the Pine Barrens. So that's kind of back to back with what's being discussed here. So prosecutors stated Wheeler Weaver of Orange County killed Sarah Butler, Joanne Brown, and Robin West all in 2016. They accused him of trying to kill another victim as well. And he has been connected to an aggravated arson attack on these same victims and at least 2 to 3 other murders. It's been what's come up with these types of people. And this was, of course, in New Jersey, interestingly enough. And today it really deserves to be looked at because of how extreme this situation was. And, what can really be learned by this is just quite strong. It's quite unbelievable. He received 160 years. So the New Jersey serial killer who used all online dating apps and apps of all type, including smartphone apps, to lure in new victims, was sentenced to 160 years in prison at the trial. Khalil Wheeler Weaver sat motionless as the judge gave the sentence in Newark, New Jersey. In a brief statement, Wheeler Weaver denied
he committed the crimes in 2000.
any kind of responsibility.
Today, 5 years later,
So even after all this,
5-year-old Khalil Wheeler Weaver was inside the Essex County Courthouse to learn his fate.
it didn't really faze anybody, even after everything that went on. That's why it's a very important case, to really examine some of the things that we can learn from this situation. The Essex County Prosecutor's Office had credited friends of Butler, who had gone to school in Montclair and similar areas, with using social media to find these killers. In other words, they lured Weaver is his real name. They lured Weaver in a way, to make certain that they captured this ring of serial killers who had worked with Khalil Weaver. Adam Wells noted yesterday the killings were separated by mere weeks, which gave Wheeler Weaver a chance to contemplate further murders. It's very important to recognize these things. West, a 19-year-old student in Philadelphia, was seen getting into Weaver's car in 2016 and was killed within the next few hours. So it goes without saying, and I think you understand and recognize where I'm coming from when I say this too, that online apps of any kind, doesn't matter if they're online dating apps, doesn't matter if they're online social texting apps, which nearly all of these are not to be trusted. They can be very, very problematic. You will discover why, okay? If you've never used these apps before and gone on to online dating, social sites and things like that, they are very, very problematic. And nearly all of them have these issues. Like I said, I would not trust companies, okay? And I would just not trust companies at all unless they're small, smaller run startup companies. Don't just automatically trust what companies are going to do, because a lot of them have this going on behind the scenes. And that's the most important thing we need to take away and learn from this particular case. Dating and social media or social interaction online only is ultimately a hazard that people should really, especially today, should pay especially close attention to what happens and why it's a hazard, why it's entirely anonymous. You don't know, folks, who 80 to 90% of these people are. Even on the actual online social sites that verify everybody's identity, you still don't know who 80 to 90% of the people truly are. Just remember that. It's not a safe environment. I don't think that online apps, to be honest, have ever really been a very safe environment. So you're going to have to take away from that the reality of the situation and start to assess your life based upon those facts. Look at the fact that nearly all of these large companies operate in this way. Look at the fact that you find this all too often. And just remember, if it's online only and it's, somebody going into a chat room, it's entirely anonymous. And that means this is going to happen in most cases. Maybe they'll come up with something with a startup company at some point that everybody is on video all the time or something, and that will be a little bit safe. Certainly compared to any of this, it'll be like walking into Shangri-La when they finally do that. That's true. I still wouldn't trust it, to be honest. And the reason why I say that, folks, is it's still all online. And what do you really know about the online world? Thank you again. Like, comment, share the videos. There's plenty more. Always more to come.